Good evening, afternoon, evening, afternoon for Tim. It's dark over here.
Yeah.
It is the Knuckle Dragger University Wednesday night edition, April 23rd. Tim, how are you, sir? It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. It's good to have
I
a show.
got I was really sick last week. I couldn't have done a show.
It's good to be on a men's.
It is. It is.
I'm having a late night coffee at 6:30. I usually don't drink coffee in the evening, but I felt like one, so I'm having it for the show. So we're live on Rumble and Locals and X and YouTube.
You too.
Awesome.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. I hear Sam in the background.
Actually, it's not Sam. Sam's not a barker, but it's my neighbor's dog. He probably hears me yapping because I usually don't. I'm out in the backyard, so I'm not
Yep.
yapping typically out here. I usually go into my studio garage, or but because you're gonna have to have a cigar here. So we got to talk about cigars. We got to talk about investments. We got to talk about starting the company. We got to talk about building a little bit. Let's pick up.
3D printing a house.
Yeah, let's talk about building here. We were talking about what you were seeing some 3D printing and on a building
Some
going.
3D printed houses in Texas, and that is where I saw them. They're on YouTube. You can go look at them, watch
And
them being printed.
they're doing
But
these
I've heard it's moving into the
commercial buildings
commercial.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's a
awesome.
fucking game changer.
So already when we start talking about 3D printing, we have to have a little sideways segue. This is a
Ooh, I
CAO
like it.
Brasilia, and they're supposed to be really good. I think I've had them before, just don't remember. So, um, speaking of which, felt good about finally getting a package out to you today. So you can,
Cigar. I'll be smoking a cigar pretty soon.
yeah, join in the club. And so I sent you a box of Fat Bottom Betties because they're kind of fun to start with. Fun, fun for the whole family.
Right.
Oh, I should have grabbed a. So I found this lighter I thought you'd really like. It's kind of apropos for our X account because it's kind of uh, preparedness, self defense oriented. So I found this cool lighter that has a clock on it on the side, and it has a little revolver or not, yeah, revolver on the top. So
Nice.
that's gotta be my man Chris. He's got to check that out. So, and then I got you just because I haven't had a chance to talk about all the good things you got, Marielle and I. Um, but I got you another thing that fits right in, and that is I'm lighting the cigar here. We did a punch.
It was either that or it was meth. I wasn't which I went with cigar.
So I just got this one in the mail today, and usually I don't smoke them until 8 months to a year later, maybe. And but this came with your lighter, so or your lighter, and it's very dry. It needs to be humidified. So, but I got you another lighter, and it's pretty cool. It's like this. This is where we find it. This is a Jetline.
Okay.
You can't see it. But you can see this one's aged. It's in my pocket a lot. It's coming apart, and I kind of have to take it to a jeweler or something because there's a little pin there, and you
Yeah.
can see on the other side the pin is sticking out. So now these lighters they're heirloom when you think about the cost. It might have cost me $19 or something like that. So,
Right.
but I love them. You can spend a lot of money on lighters, but these are just cool because it's got these two accessories. One's a hole punch. The other one's you can use it as a nubber to stick in at the last end of the cigar, or you can, if it fix the draw, if it's not drawn right, usually because of humidity issues or something like that. So I got you, and this one I'll show you. Um, it has a little dial. Here we go. On the bottom to turn it up or turn it down. And you can't see that in the dark, but that's about a 3 or 4 inch flame. Maybe 5.
Golly.
You can see a little, right?
Yeah, I see it.
So, but if you see that, it's got 3 jets in it. See those 3 jets? And that's a little overkill.
I bet I could weld in a fucking Freon line with that goddamn thing. Don't need
So,
my torches. I need my cigar lighter. Just a second. I'll fix it.
well, that's the problem. It's a little overkill. I've got one that's a 4 jet, and for the 4 jet, it's way too much. But I use this one because I'm outside in the wind,
Yep.
and or if you're golfing, you can make this up. But I was thinking about which one to send you, but I have another one of these that's a single, um, and that's really ideal for touching up the cigar when it's it might burn on one side a little bit, and you just touch it up as you're smoking it, and that is just it's a really nice lighter because it's a single, and that's really all you need. But this is for the wind, and but I sent you one like this, and I hope you like it because it's camouflage.
Gonna love it. That's my style.
I thought you might like that. So now that was the cigar.
That and did you see my shirt?
I
I
don't.
don't co I don't co-parent with the government.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So so I've been wearing my my hoodie in Portland, of all places.
I did not send you Portland West Coast attire, really. Even though I did send it to the West Coast.
No, I think
That's more Midwest attire, I think.
it's a
People probably like it though nowadays.
so I was getting an early morning coffee today in Portland. But it's a suburb of Portland. Yeah,
Tell
it's
me,
Bethany.
Beaverton,
Bethany.
Bethany.
It's out by Beaverton, I think.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, so it's Bethany, and and then I was there's a cigar lounge over at. Can you hear me all right? Sound,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
sir.
So there's a cigar lounge over in Lake Oswego. You know where Lake and those are they tend to be a little more conservative type of areas in Portland, I think, because
There's pockets.
I was over there and I wear the hoodie. It's like the only clothes I've got. You would think, but I love it so much. I have a beef though, so I'm gonna grab my phone. Sorry, it's busting. Oh, that's another topic. Methylene blue. Um, so anyway, I was getting in early mornings, and I know you got to patronize Starbucks a little bit. They happen to bread and butter a little bit for you, but I'm typically not a Starbucks guy. Except there's one right by there, and there's one in the grocery store that's open. Um, like they don't ever close. It's like they're open like 2 at night, and then they're still open. They get open up again like 4:30 or 5 in the morning. And I'm an early riser when I'm in Portland, and I usually don't make coffee at the place where Marielle is. I just kind of go out, and she's usually up too getting ready, so I just go for a walk with Sam and grab a cup of coffee. But anyway, I'm in there this morning, and she didn't.
Well, it looks a little hippie-ish too. Love,
Oh,
peace, and hollow points.
it is beautiful. She goes, love and peace and hollow points, and I go, yeah, there's a story behind that. And I could tell she liked it. It was just funny. Because I was ready and then I go around to get my coffee, and then I tell her the story about my producer friend in Wisconsin. She liked
Yeah.
it. So, and at the cigar lounge, you get a little bit of everything there, but it's. I mean, they're open discussing things. It's still a place where you can have opposing views. So
I've never been to a cigar lounge, Tim. Is
I,
it really like a room that you sit down and smoke cigars in, or what's going on in them?
yeah, they're some of the best places in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, they they're all over the country. Certain places are regulated more, like Oregon, that highly regulated. It's hard to start a new one, so you have to be grandfathered in, I think. And
Is it a license, like an alcohol license?
yeah, basically.
Okay, or a liquor
So,
license?
but it's not that way everywhere. My favorite one is probably in
Not.
Phoenix.
It shouldn't be in America, but I don't know that Portland's there. But
The My favorite one is in Phoenix, but
okay.
my favorite ones, just wherever I go, is it's just a great place because you have discussions, and no matter what. I mean, you could go to San Francisco if they had them, and you would have a good discussion. You can go. You can pick out the worst place in the world, and if you find a lounge, you'll have a good discussion, and it'll be civil and thought provoking. And so I have a few in Portland. There's one called Broadway Cigars, and it's in Lake Oswego. There's another one downtown Portland. It's Broadway. It's called Broadway Cigars too. Um, it's on Broadway Street. Both of them, they're a different vibe, but both of them are very cool. Um, and it's sense of community. The people that run them, they have a men and women, predominantly men, and but there are women that come in too. It's probably 80-20. And this particular one in Lake Oswego has a horse racing bent. So you walk in, it's free coffee, and you can get Coke water. It's all basically free. They have lockers in the back where people um, they invest in their cigars, and so they'll keep all their cigars in the locker and in the back.
Okay. So you can keep your cigars there. You can buy your cigars and store them there.
Yeah, and then they just go back in there, smoke for the day or one, and then they have these little. I can show you too the little travel humidors, and I have one. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second, so you can take care of your cigars when you get them. Um, so you walk in. This one is kind of typical. They're all big king leather chairs, right?
Okay.
In half circle, like a U, with coffee tables and stuff, and little tables with ashtrays, and then TVs with horse racing. Basically, they watch sports, but it's primarily horse racing. And they open at 10 in the morning, and the guys start coming in, right?
Is it OTB? Is it off track betting? Can you bet them?
Yeah. Well, uh,
On your phone, probably.
yeah, everybody's betting on their phone.
Yeah.
And but what's really cool about it is they're different persuasion guys. I mean, they're some golf crowd, some blue collar, some ranchers. So it's fascinating,
Hmm.
and different ages, um, and they harass the hell out of each other. There isn't anything that's not fair
It's a
game.
locker room environment.
No, no, it's pretty, fairly clean. It's okay for
Dudes, though, you can get after each other a little bit.
yeah, but they hand it out, right? Like one guy, there's like 4 or 5 of us or 6 of us sitting around watching horse races, and one guy walks in. He's a big, slender guy, probably in his 60s, and you knuckleheads, and he comes in, he harasses us. Don't look at the stock market today, and he knows them all, right? And it's just funny
Mm-hmm.
because they're harassing each other back and forth, and he goes in. I'm just here. I gotta grab some cigars because I'm going golfing, and the fools I'm golfing with, they always expect me to have cigars for me. So it's just like that type of stuff, and
Yeah,
but they're
yeah.
all they share meaningful things when they talk about life or building or children, and so I've met and health, all just different things, and they've all been successful, because typically you're not smoking cigars if you don't have the time just to go to a lounge to smoke a cigar unless you've got time off or done something, and so it's just a lot of wisdom when you boil things down, and they talk about significant things, right? And it's not just politics or investments, but it's just I find it interesting. It's about improving things, right? And you don't hear that much anymore. You hear complaints about things,
Mm-mm.
and you hear
Yeah, the other side sucks. That's what you hear.
yeah, and you hear arguments, but you don't hear how can we improve this. And
Yeah, how we fix
and
it,
I
homie.
yeah, and I think that comes with a little bit of savvy age. So the guy I'm sitting next to, I met maybe a year ago or so.
Maybe a little humility.
Yeah, a lot of it. This guy um, is a he. I knew what he did, but he looks like he could be homeless, right? I
Okay.
mean, rough looking, scrawny, older, and unkept, whatever. But he's a really a well known, not well respected and well known horse guy, horse trainer, and he grew up through the ranks. He goes, I think he's been to the Kentucky Derby 38 years in a row. Knows them all.
Wow.
Has horses that races there. He could, write a check to buy the whole place, probably as many times as he wanted, and still, the combined net worth of everybody there would not equal. He's
Yeah,
so, but you would never know that,
I
never.
love that. I love that.
And we start talking, and he's teaching me about the games of horsemanship, and he's got a grandson that's in the rodeo and a granddaughter that does part of the barrel racing or whatever, and she's a trainer, and so it's just I'll go in there, maybe I'm there, I don't know, once every 6 months or so, and I'll go in like the normal guy that owns the place is not there on Mondays, and I went in there on Monday morning, and I go down. I went down to the boulangerie. You know what a boulangerie is?
Nope.
It's a French pastry shop. And if you go to France, their bread, their pastries, they they're they're just not. You can't find anything around here. I found something at the closest thing I found in the states is a sound hoity-toity. It's up at Victoria Island in Canada. British Columbia, out across from Vancouver. And you can tell the wheat's different, and they make it themselves, but they start with different wheat. And I always, Mary
No
always,
folic acid in that.
no, 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 they're not spraying it with anything, and it doesn't make you sick, and it doesn't make you fat either.
I
So
mean, sorry, I apologize, United States government. I meant enriched is what I
yeah,
meant to say. My God.
just clog up your liver, right? So
Yeah,
Mary always, because she's probably, I gotta be careful because she's probably um, watching, and then if she watches, then I get in trouble. No, I'm teasing, but I can't lie as much. You gotta have
sure.
conscience, right? So no, she gives me a hard time because because she was born there, so she has family there, and when we've been there, I would, hey there, who's that?
Yeah, that's Willie.
Willie,
Big Willie.
Big Willie's, he's a Tomer.
Yeah, he's a big tomcat. He's my buddy.
That's cool.
He only likes me. He's my buddy. We're
Yeah,
close.
that's cool. I'd have Sam get up on my lap, but she'd overwhelm me. She's looking at me sleeping. She's got a bed with a hose across the top, and she's sleeping on the top of the hose. But
Um,
so anyway, Muriel just teases me about we were in Paris. My French is terrible, but I could come back with a plate of, pastries as if I was fluent in French. And I do the same thing with all kinds of meat chops, everything. It was just so cool. So, but anyway, what were we talking about?
So 3D printed houses, and
Yeah,
they're into commercial. And then since I do HVAC, sorry, I was talking about. I mean, the R value is impeccable in those buildings, but I mean they're airtight, so that's not always like great.
right. I mean, as we were mentioning, that the building industry and the technological advancements has gone backwards, and it's because it's the wrong target. So, one, as you know about fiberglass insulation, for example, if it gets moisturized, it loses like, I don't know, 95% of its value.
Fucking grows mold too.
And it throws, they test it when it's purely dry in a super environment, but then it's, becomes just terrible. And
Well, that stuff has lost R value down south when you open it. So if I pull that fucking bag of Flex open
yeah,
and I'm at the new construction site, and that Flex is gonna sit there in a fucking skeleton with a dry cloth over a plyboard roof with but what I'm saying it's 100% humidity for 6 months.
yeah, yeah,
There's no R value in that ductwork when you buy that brand new home. That's so great.
yeah. So if that was the target, then but maybe it's all right. But it's the target is they're selling it for the better R value. And so what happens with R value is like, if you had a cement building, for example, it's conductive. Whatever the temperature outside of that cement block is the same on the inside. And it's instant. It goes right through, right? There's very little time difference.
Yep.
And so what they do is they slam insulation on the inside of that cement. And that traps moisture. So now you got mold, right? Especially if you got a humid environment. Um, it's just par for the course. And it's worse if you have drywall, right? Drywall is a mold producer. And once drywall gets gets wet, then what happens, right? It's a nightmare. And so then we try to get a better R factor, thinking that we save energy costs, which is somewhat true, but it's tantamount to me putting you in a cooler. So I put you in a cooler, and what am I going to need to do? One, you're going to die because you'll suffocate after a bit, right? And then in the meantime, while you're dying, which is a pretty good metaphor, I got to throw ice cubes in it all the time to keep it cold if you want it colder, or I got to throw heat in it, fire in it to keep it warm. And so, but we got R42 on my cooler, right? And so, or my Yeti cup or whatever. Well, if you're drinking something, okay. But if you're living in something, we weren't designed to do that. And so what we were designed to do is resonate with mass, solid mass material. That's why it feels good to be in a cave. It feels good to be in one of these old English or Irish castles, right? There's just a certain feeling about them because their mass is like 4 6 feet wide, right?
Right.
And so you look at that and you see, wow. And so, do they have any insulation in castles? No, no insulation. So, but I tell you what, they'd bring it up to heat at those fires on the inside, and they said, "Yeah, Tim, right? Go live in medieval times and tell me how it is." Yeah, but understand the principle is that when you bring the mass to a certain temperature, it maintains that temperature for a longer period of time. Whereas you're blowing around air, hot or cold, in typical any home, and because of the HVAC guys left their mark, and it's not healthy. So what you want to do is have thermal mass, something like that's why I use engineered earth blocks, where we compress dirt that's uncooked. It's raw, and with a certain amount of clay in it, and you can do some amendments. You got to be careful how much or what, but you keep it so they're kind of self healing. You put a little lime in it, or you put magnesium oxide in it or what have you, and then they'll crack a little bit sometimes, but they heal back up. And then, but you mortar is a typical weak point, so we use actually earth block mortar. It's just a slurry mix of dirt, and it presses and it fuses, and that thing is like a castle.
Solid. Yeah.
Yeah, you can run a semi into it or put an
But it's
RPG.
mass, and once you get it to the temperature, it's going to be there.
It's going to be there. Now, if you put certain types of clay on the inside, or you can seal it off on the inside, which typically people do, but some of them are designed to suck moisture in the summer and give it out in the winter. And
So this is going to be the issue with 3D printed commercial buildings. Not all commercial buildings, but the first ones that are going to start are the fast food restaurants.
yeah,
Um, and they are running fryers and steam washers, and there's a lot of moisture in there, a lot.
so as you guys, what you do exchangers, right? You're going to exchange air from the outside to inside. You're going to condition it, and but you got to make it breathe somehow. And but
You have to.
when you are building, this is what I call backwards building. We're not improving. I mean, you look at the
We're
houses.
causing a whole nother slew of problems.
Look at the houses they built in 1900, 1910, before World War One, and even after World War One, 1920. The craftsmanship that went into those houses were
Ooh.
unbelievable. And it tells you about the money. I mean, because the money was worth something, you could have stored value, and stored value gives you time to make things excellent.
Mhm.
This is the golden era that Trump is allegedly trying to bring in place, But
You also had craftsmen.
you had craftsmen.
Sorry.
So that's a whole nother discussion. There was a
Yeah.
fascinating book that was kind of written by at the time he wrote it, was very liberal, but now his name is James Kunstler, and he's a really kind of a philosopher, and he's pretty sharp, but he's kind of harsh. Um, but he's a lot more liberty oriented. And he wrote several books. He's a prolific writer, but he wrote a book called Home from Nowhere, and he talked about the architecture of and how it's declined through the invent of the automobile. And he described what different industries were doing to undermine the trains and the building. And because now you have disposable buildings that started going up because people could drive, and it's kind of the unintended consequence of progress. And it's this, I was just talking about, he made a really interesting point about World War One and World War Two. We sent two generations of men away to die that didn't come back. And so there was a break in the translation of building information and character information from father to son, and that impacts the society. And I thought, wow, that's pretty
I
prolific.
never thought about that.
And so anyway, we when we talk about building, you really, if you can generate heat or cooling, and if you have heat, you can make cooling, right? That's the concept. And you compress the freon, what have you. So the aspect of it, we're going backwards by building these stick frame, quick throw up houses and put HVAC in them, but you're continually having to push air, and of course that.
We're either adding or subtracting heat. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and there's a
And
moisture
humidity.
too, right? You got a humidity. If you don't
The
have
air conditioning is a fucking happy accident. We're
yeah,
really just trying to dehumidify the fucking home.
that's all the air conditioning is, dehumidifier, right?
Yeah.
And same
Well,
way,
it was for. Didn't they make it for the old paper mills back in the day? Because they would mildew all summer, and they built the first dehumidifier, and realized, I believe, probably somewhere through that process, that holy shit, we can also change the temperature once we get the dew point right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you think about in the winter, what do you need? You need moisture so that the heat, the air heat, can grab onto a heavier molecule and make you feel warm. Right?
What a you know, and here's another fun fact, ladies and gentlemen, why they like the big movies come out in the summer is because back in the day, the movie theater was the only
Yeah,
place that had a fucking air conditioning, so everybody flocked there at the, you know,
movie theater.
so
Yeah, it was a place
yeah,
of
that's
getting
the deal.
together. Right?
More
Yeah.
heat and air fun facts. I'm full of them. uh, yeah. So so we 3D print this house, we still got to dehumidify it. What a fucking golden goose they handed the energy companies when they handed them an air conditioner.
Well,
We
that's
could make these so much more. This doesn't have to cost us much to run.
I think I've talked to you about houses. I don't know if I sent you pictures, and I could probably pull them up here on the screen, where we built earth block houses that never had a utility bill. You know, we use the
Yeah,
concept
we did talk
of
about
solar
that.
and hydrogen, and you can
Hydrogen
make hydrogen so easily just with
out of
electrostatic.
water.
Um, you can make hydrogen using a oil boiler,
Yep.
right? Because you got the two electrodes, you just put water through that and shock it. You get a division of
You get the
hydrogen being
H, the
hot.
2, and the O, homie.
Yeah, and then you can compress it into a propane tank. In Dallas, we could store
Mhm.
enough.
Boy, they're gonna shoot us if we talk too much about this.
Well, it's an interesting concept. It's an element of control when we think that we'll name a source of energy and we'll call it a fossil fuel because then
Sure.
it makes it seem like it's a limited quantity. Once it's over, it's all gone. But
Yeah.
the reality is they thought they were going to run out of it in '72 when Jimmy Carter was president, or Nixon, I guess, was back
Right before the acid rain was gonna melt us.
then. So, but it gets replenished, right? But that's a nice deal for major monopolies to be able to charge, on one source. So,
When you think back, just from the industrial period to today, how much people influence that, like manipulated America on its journey here in these 250 years.
yeah, if you
How
look at
how
yeah,
the elites have always been gonna have stayed there by just manipulating everything.
that there's things. Have you followed anything? I put on the X site. I followed a guy that's doing the pyramid research. Have you seen any of those
Oh, with the
videos?
radar,
Yeah, if you look at the tunnels
is that
underneath the
fucking crazy?
shafts, those are energy producers or
Absolutely, those are coils.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, that's a coil. What are we even discussing? That's a fucking power plant, homie. Like powered from the core of the probably way too free for
Yeah, it's
way
free
too free.
energy.
Just
And
way
you
too
look at
free. Tesla,
the
I think Nicholas Tesla had tapped into that.
he, he was
Hey, tell Trump's uncle, let's spill. Is he still alive? Didn't he
mm-mm.
go get no? Well, I bet Trump's got that shit. He's got Nicholas's shit.
If you look at Expertech or whatever the space military conglomerate back in the 40s and 50s, and even the controlling presidents and the assassination of Kennedy and all of those tied with Expertech, Um, Kennedy was into space, right? And they didn't like that. And he wanted to work with Russia, collaborate with them on the technology. And but even Tesla, I think, was more of, and Tesla and I's birthdays are the same. I always like Nikola Tesla's same birthday, and but I think he just I don't think he discovered anything. I think he found other discoveries, and not that he wasn't brilliant or whatever. The whole deal with him and Edison was unbelievable.
And I've been down that rabbit hole for years. I love it. I
So
love it.
yeah, so
I
I
love
think
it.
that when
The
you look at
Rockefeller, all that. When all that's going on, the manipulation, the money, the backstabbing. I mean, where our country could have went, and where you can just kind of start to put the puzzle pieces together of what
so
of what the fucking corruption and how long the corruption's been going on. This isn't new.
no, when you look at they had plain designs and craft that would move not only just space oriented things, but just move on the planet. They had those things designed before the turn of this 1900, right? So, uh, and then you look at the things that they're
Do you think
trying to figure.
everything's about 50 years behind? If we're getting the cool new technology, they've had it for 50,
Well,
20.
if you look at Atlantis, uh, the theory that they're putting forth is no, we could be thousands of years behind. That there were other
Oh
uh,
yeah. No, I've been.
precursors of civilization that are far advanced. Instead of we always think of the caveman mentality, like, well, we're so much evolved. Well, it's probably the other way around. Um,
Yeah, it's like we've all been stuck in this little shed with no fucking windows, and now somebody's starting to like take some paper towels and be like, "Hey, man, what's over here?"
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And technology, the internet, the fact that me and you from two different states can get on here and talk about things that we both know and come together and come up with conclusions, and that's happening everywhere since the internet. I mean, that really put a whole that hurt the deep. I'm sure that hurt the keepers. I don't know what you want to call them, the people that keep the secrets from us.
Yeah, uh, but you realize in some common sense things, how would these pyramid designs?
Absolutely. No, you're right. We've been struggling this for years. We're fucking taking grapevine ropes up like we're gonna haul these. Have you felt a granite countertop, bro? I mean, these are huge. A gran I've taken a granite cabinet top from the truck to inside of a that is real rock.
So I've built these things off of research done in India using certain types of granite squares um, that were mined from a certain quarry because of their energetic value, and built them for people to get inside of, just for healing purposes. It sounds crazy, but it works. It's fascinating. Um, and so there's just so many things that are progress. It runs contrary, just like processed food versus living food, right? I mean, we make these advances, but they're contrary to the healing. We build these beautiful alleged houses, but they're uglier than anything that's ever been um, made before us, right? Um, so, I mean, and it affects your soul. And you walk through the streets of Paris before it turned into a hellhole from all the garbage that's going on there. But you just look around in the architecture, or you can go to Krakow, Poland. I don't care. It's got the town squares, and people meet, and they have food, and they're festive, and they walk around with these amazing architecture. They don't even realize it's there, but it impacts a culture. And when you build disposable Walmart buildings,
Which we did
and
everywhere.
the streets are dirty, and they build sidewalks on these freeways that no one would ever walk there. And it's just simple things. I get you got to read the book Home from Nowhere. It's fascinating. You can see when a city, how old it is and what area it is, because they'll have the street, then they'll have a row of trees, and then they'll have a sidewalk where people can actually walk on a sidewalk and talk. And in the new generation, probably from after World War II, Levittown was built, they put the sidewalks right next to the street. And so humans and cars don't mix together. You run into a human at 50 mile an hour, it doesn't work. And so there's a reason why they avoid those sidewalks, right? But the code says you got to have the sidewalk, so they charge the builder, or the developer. He has to put in a sidewalk, but no one would ever walk there, right? And it's just kind of crazy. And then you see these developments with gridded streets, and they have trees next to the streets, and then the walk, and it's like Highland Park in Dallas. Is people think, well, they built all these super homes, that's why they retain the value. It's still the best community in Dallas, and it's not because of the wealth, it's because of the architecture. They have gridded streets. One street gets busy, you just pull over to the next street and you can get to the school. And they build the schools right in the neighborhood, so they're not some mega school where everybody, they can't walk or ride their bike to school. No, they can there and always have, and they will until they change that. And they'll never change it. You can't just move trees and build wider streets. Wider streets don't make for better traffic.
Yeah.
It just fills up. So it's these concepts of city planning, um, and building a city were lost after World War II just because of the generational gap, and it wasn't handed down. And so now you start mass producing a Levittown, you have cul-de-sac. And so James Kunstler is he has a blog or whatever, it's called Clusterfuck. He's the one that coined that term, right? And it's true. I mean, how do you can't drive the next street over and you run into a cul-de-sac. You got to turn around, right? And it makes for terrible communities. Now, I live in a community with cul-de-sacs, but it would be so much better if it was designed for gridded streets. But we
What?
get off from
All
building.
right. No. Let's switch over to. We're running. It's already 9:15. Let's go to. Uh, well, what do you want to talk about next? You want to talk
Well,
about
let's
the
talk about
business
crypto
or
for a little
crypto?
bit.
Yep. Yep.
So we're seeing some major changes, and then for a while, I've been talking about get ready for the bump, and the bump happened. It went from 84, it was like 79, 84 Bitcoin, for example, and then I said it's going to bump up. And again, I'm not predicting; I'm just using systems to tell me, so it's a probability thing. So get ready for the bump, and then I probably sold a little. I mean, I don't get hung up over it because it's a trend, right? And I want to. So I said, okay, I'm gonna start selling off from like 100% into Bitcoin down to 35%. But I start selling as it incrementally got up. Just take my gain, and it went from. You can see my post from the 79 to 82. Then it jumped up to
90.
96 or 97, and so took the gains. And you'd like to stay in to a certain point, because if it keeps going up. But I felt like a long term was going to continue to go up when liquidity hit globally, but it's going to be sideways and there's going to be some dips. So I thought, I'll be smart here and I'm going to sell off and then hopefully buy into the dip again. So I sold off down to 35%, and I did that, took the gains, but it hasn't come down yet. Now I've already bought back in a little bit, when it hit like 92 or 91, which is still higher than I think it could go down. It could go all the way back down to 76, 79, 80. But I think realistically, I'm hoping for at least in the mid high 80s, 84 to 87. I'm all back in, right? Because I think long term it's going up. But if you follow um, and again, I'm not giving any investment advice other than to make your money make money. Those are huge gains. From 80 to 96, that's 16 grand, which is 20 some percent or more, right?
Yep.
In a week's time, it's like a week's 5-day time frame that it popped. If you just follow,
You
you're
could
making,
have slept the entire week, still
yeah.
made that money.
hmm So then I started seeing some other coins look like, okay, you're going to have some promise here, and you got to be able to move on a dime, not day trading, but you know, like I was in Solana. I said to get into it, and then sold it off, made some money, sold it off, kept about 10% or 5%, but I got into AVAX and it went up. Got out of Link, made some money, and so I kind of been switching around. I'm 35% into Bitcoin, 40% into SUI, SUI, and where it comes and goes, and I'll write it up. And if you know, depending on what if you have, it doesn't make a difference. You have 100,000 in, 100 million in, 10,000 in, or 1,000 in. If you just figure, I like to use 100,000 because it shows you make 20%. That's 20 grand in your pocket in a week's time on 100
You
grand.
still have your 100.
Yeah, and you still have your 100. Now you can lose. I mean, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I don't leverage it. I don't try to go crazy. I mean, you can make 3x, but then you can lose. If a little dip, you can lose it all, right? So yeah, you could make 80 grand on the 3xing it, but that's risky, man. I don't, no thanks. I'm using this as a inflation protector, and because if you're not making 30% on your money over an annual time in the last 5 years, you're losing. That's inflation alone is eating that up. Um, so anyway,
Got to be vigilant.
you just look at the trends. If you have good systems, and I've built them, and I continue to tweak them, but you look at the trends. You don't day trade and try to guess and get all emotional about it. You stick to the systems, and even if emotionally you want to try something, or you don't, because I don't follow my losses. I don't look at, okay, I got to make this back up because I got out a little too early or I got in a little too late. No, I just look at where am I in and where's it headed, and then if the system changes, I'm not gonna sweat it. I'll take my losses and keep them minimal, and get back and
Move
wait
on.
for the next trend when the systems are there. And one of the things about you and I is I tell you what I'm doing when I'm doing it. Sometimes I post them, but if I don't post them, I'll just send you a text, and then because I want I want to be accountable, and then I want you to be able to say, yeah, that's true. He did that. So good, bad, or ugly.
I did it too.
So anyway, so far so good. I think there's been I don't know. I haven't figured out what the gains would be on the short term, but you know, you're making if you make 10 to 30% on your money in a couple weeks time, that translates to 40-50% a month. And if you can do it every month, that's 400-500%. Now it takes money to make money, and you've got to have an increase so that you can put money away to make it work for you. So, and I've only talked to you really about crypto and in particular Bitcoin. And there's coming a time where where we get enough, uh, people or whatever seeing or in an interest, we'll start doing commodities and stocks and other types of secure investments, gold. Um, I advise people to, um, which is I love gold, but there's a lot of people that are just so anti Bitcoin, just kind of like they have Trump derangement syndrome. They have gold derangement syndrome or Bitcoin derangement system or syndrome.
Seriously,
But then
it's real.
you find out that those type of people, they also sell gold for a living. So then, all right. But the reality is, when the gold hit the peak, um, I encourage people to sell your gold and buy into some crypto options, and then um, let it ride up, and then get back in when gold drops, because or something else, right? So right now, it's just time to be smart.
Yep.
All right, what's next? We want to talk about
Power
business,
washing.
power washing. So to have it, I look at, like, I talk about systems, or having a system to look at global liquidity, and to evaluate the emotions of the market, so, and have indexes that tell you the probability. It's kind of like betting on the Lakers. You figure out, well, what's their percentage of scoring, per possession, and defense allowing, and then against who and why, and you kind of figure out probabilities. Now, I did that. I was never a betting man. I did it to learn better systems and better thinking from Barnes, right? And Barnes is really good at analyzing those types of things. And it's funny. People can look and see losses. Barnes a bet big and lose, but the trend overall, he's way ahead, right? I've
Right.
seen him, like March Madness. I thought it was, a lot of good getting to the quarterfinals or in the finals, but then some huge losses. But if you were to do it over again, you would do the same thing because the probability is in your favor. What
Yep.
happened were anomalies and luck, right? There are certain
Yep.
things that happen. You know, when he was talking about how many next level players, whether they're NBA players, they had on a team, potential NBA players that would last longer than 3 years. Well, Duke was by far way ahead of everybody. And then you look at the other teams. Where was it? Was it
Well, I
Auburn?
had Florida,
Yeah, that's because you're an emotional
but it
guy.
wasn't about like what was gonna be. It was about what the team was on the court right now, and that Florida. You're right. Duke is a better like the individual by talent is better. But
Well, and
Florida's played together a lot longer, and the cohesiveness, they were just going to be very hard to beat.
they totally choked, right? They just
Mm-hmm.
swallowed an egg, at the end. And what was the other one? The guy that what was the game where the guy had the last second shot and
I
he
had
jumped
that
in the
game
air
too.
and dribbled it, and then
Houston,
Houston and Auburn, right?
Auburn.
Yeah, it just total
I had
choke.
Houston in that. Could you believe that? Sometimes I think I'm just lucky.
Yeah, I did not
I
have Houston. I, I
had,
did the,
I did.
I did the probability thing. I followed Barnes, but he lost big. But that's, you got to live with that in investing. You have to what I find, if I bet, and in business the same way, if I fail in business, if there's such a thing, because you're learning even through the failures. But if something doesn't go right and you fail, if I put myself in a reflective thought process, you'd like to be able to handle both of these well. But I can tell you one that I really handle well, and one that I don't handle very well. I handle well when it's kind of like betting on Duke and they lose. Well, I'll be a winner. 8 out of 10
8 out of
times. I'm
10 times.
I'm
Yep.
going to take those odds.
10 out of 10 if Coach K would have come 3 rows down and just stood there.
But on the other hand, when I wasn't part of the success or the choice making, or I bet emotionally, or other people are making decisions that I'm stuck with, it's frustrating. That's hard to handle. It's hard to handle when, oh man, I'm betting during the game because they got down. I thought, I grabbed these numbers. Or, people chasing things, and it's okay to not chase, but it's okay to bet during the games or whatever. But you have to use a system to do that, and it's so important.
And
It's kind of like,
offshore books, not United States books. The offshore books are about 45 seconds behind. That's where you can find an edge.
it's true. but
Yeah.
you can't use emotion. You have to,
No.
and you can get a
To
feel of the game.
mathematically do that.
So I was looking at, and like I said, I rarely bet anymore. I'll do that championship things with Barnes just for fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but and as you know, I was using systems when we were with Cricket and the boys, and we were talking about. We had a little competition with the previous gig. I did
Hmm.
really well in that,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but I just it takes too much time, too much risk for me to continue to do every day. I don't have that luxury, and so it's not my. I'd rather create business or do something like that. It's not my
Yeah.
interest,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was my divide and conquer interest, and it was a good community. I really enjoyed it, and and it served a purpose for that period of time. And but then it just had to move on, because it's not my. It's not something that I would have to go full time into doing that if I wanted, and I had to treat it like I was making a living doing it, and I'd figure out
Yeah.
how to do that. And I think there is a group of people that do that well. There's a Kelly from Vegas. She's pretty
Mhm.
sharp,
Yep.
and people more than I do that seem to do well.
You know who does really well at it? People that people that like have money, and they do other things. It is a real fucking struggle to gamble sports for a living, and that's all you do.
Yeah, so as you know, I've mentioned this before. I've you just have never had a TV. I mean, very sparingly I've ever had a TV, and
Right.
the reason why I've never had a TV, and it's kind of different now because you have, I got a golf projector and I use it as a TV, but I still don't ever watch TV. So, but when I go up to Portland, they everything's already there and there's a TV or whatever, and so I flipped it on this morning just to see what they were talking about, and the channel comes right up, and it's a sports channel, and there's a girl there and a guy, and they're talking um, sports, and they're talking about the NFL draft, and then they're given odds betting on what teams are going to choose who and what round they're going to go. I mean, this has gone off the rails, and they're talking like they're Winston Churchill. Like these are the important things of life during World War II.
It's all
My,
I cannot watch sports. I can't watch mainstream network sports anymore.
I shut it
It's
off
way too hard.
within 2 minutes. I shut it off. I said, I don't even care about this.
Yeah, who gives a f? Let me,
Okay, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like everybody is gonna pick really well, and Chicago and Cleveland are gonna shit themselves. Next, like we've
That's the
watched this
trend.
movie for years.
It's a 50-year trend, right? Or
Yeah,
longer.
trade up. No, pass up Patrick Mahomes. Get that Mitch Trubisky guy in the second. Trade your whole franchise for Mitch Trubisky, who played one game at North Carolina 6 years ago. What the fuck? I'll never understand that. I swear Peyton Manning, the Mannings were behind that.
You know, Jerry Jones is bad, and yet, um, was it Cleveland that saved
How
his?
many first round quarterbacks have they got in your lifetime? A lot in my lifetime, and they all shit the bus.
Troy Aikman was an exception. That's because of Jimmy Johnson, right? But
But he,
Jimmy,
but he wasn't at fucking Cleveland. That's Dallas.
no, no, no. I agree, but I thought you were talking about Dallas because I mentioned. Um,
No, Dallas was phenomenal when Jerry Jones let Bill Parcells do his things, and when he let Jimmy Johnson do his thing. Hell yeah, you're gonna fucking win down there
yeah,
because
the
people
worst
want to
worst
play for
thing
the
that
star.
Jerry did was to get rid. He have his ego get rid of Jimmy Johnson, right? He blew it.
Dumb.
I
You
always
had
say that.
Bill Parcells and then Jimmy Johnson. You would have had a dynasty like we'd all be wanting to catch that.
So, but I was going to mention Cleveland in context with Jerry Jones is bad, but how he would be an even worse because remember when he was trying to go after the guy from Texas A&M that was a
Manziel.
nut job, yeah, and wasn't it Cleveland or was yeah
Yeah,
Cleveland?
Cleveland did get him. I couldn't believe it. Why you even do that?
Yeah, unbelievable.
You could have allowed Jerry Jones to shit the bus right there. That would have been a phenomenal story.
He can't help himself. I mean, he just has to
And
be
let me
involved.
tell you, players want to go to Dallas because Texas is a great place to be. Nobody wants to go to fucking Cleveland.
No.
So that's that he has everything. He just kept his ego. Darn it.
Yeah, I mean, he had the ability to buy the team, and he had the ability to amass good people like a Jimmy
Boy, when he
Johnson.
bought that team, they played in the Cotton Bowl, and it was falling apart.
Now they played at Texas Stadium.
Oh, and Irving,
Yeah, in Irving.
did
And
they played at the Cotton Bowl when he bought him in the 70s, didn't they?
no. Oh,
No.
when who bought him?
Did Jerry
Jerry
Jones
Jones?
buy him in
No,
the
he bought him.
70s?
He bought him in like '89, and they were playing
Was
at the Texas Stadium.
okay, well back in the 70s they were at
So he
Cotton.
fired Tom Landry,
Oh, that
and
was
so
that was a deal.
Landry was at the Cotton Bowl, which is a dump now. It was beautiful structure, that whole state fair area, but
That's where
and
the that's
it
where
was
OU
cool
and
in its
Texas play.
time. Yeah, and then they moved to Irving in the '70s. I think the Cowboys were started in the '60s, '62, something like that. And the first Dallas Texan team was Kansas City.
My point is Dallas has to try to lose. Like if somebody would just back Jerry up, they would win default. They would win because people want to be there. People like
Yeah,
Texas.
you're absolutely right. So in
That's a
some ways,
great place to live for a professional ball player.
if you put Jerry Jones in Cleveland, just think how bad it would be. It would be worse than what they're
Yeah.
doing.
It's hard to get people to go to Cleveland. Their taxes are high and it sucks. It's a sucky city. Dallas is cool. I mean, it's not a bad place to be.
No, it's a great place to live.
Yeah,
But you look at the NFL sites,
especially if you're a Dallas Cowboy.
right, right. I remember, remember, well, you don't remember. Before your time, there were only 3 channels on TV, right? And
I grew up with 3 channels.
they didn't even uh, broadcast the NBA championships.
No,
It
you
was,
were a Notre Dame fan because that's the only thing that was ever on. Unless you lived in Oklahoma, you got OU Nebraska once a year. You got OU Texas once a year.
the
There's only
Cubs
a
were
few.
on
You got
WGN. The
every.
Cubs,
That's why the Cubs have so many fans nationally. Because my age group, like the first latchkey kids, the first
yeah,
moms that went to work and burned their bras.
right.
We would go home in the afternoon and have to watch I mean, you watch the Cubbies
Yeah, that's right.
or
So
Dukes of Hazard.
yeah, that's right. So I was gonna make we're getting sidetracked here, but it's kind of good. I remember as a kid where Pat Summerall, the, I remember Dandy Don or Meredith and Howard Cosell and Frank Gifford. That was Monday nights were great then. But I remember so little that I would do my best to stay up for halftime because that's where you saw all the highlights, right? Now you got highlights 24/7, or they're lowlights in a. But I could barely stay awake long enough to watch Howard Cosell's pre-recorded halftime highlights, But that was the thing on Monday night, and but I remember Pat Summerall, who would announce a lot for the Cowboys. And as a kid, as a Green Bay fan, right? Because you grew up in Wisconsin, whatever. And I always
Go
used to
Pack
get
Go.
mad listening to Pat Summerall talk about the Dallas place kicker. the field goal kicker, and his name was Efron Herrera, and you don't even
Okay.
remember that name,
No,
but
I haven't heard it though.
yeah, Efron O'Hara, O'Hara, something like that. O'Hara, Efron O'Hara. And so I thought that Pat Summerall was so biased because I thought he was saying our friend Herrera, but he was talking about the Dallas kicker. Of course, whenever Green Bay and Dallas would play, it was it was a knuckle dragger,
All right, power washing.
power washing. So we talked a little bit about this. So one, um, the best type of risk to take are the ones that have no risk, right?
Right.
Because the sure thing, it's like what the banks do. People talk about the Federal Reserve controls everything. No, they don't. It's the international and national banks who make euro dollars by lending, but the majority of money, the U.S. dollars that are in circulation, I got to be careful calling it circulation, were never printed by the Treasury, right? They're all just made up out of fiction and lent out. And it's a ledger balance program. It's you just correct the ledgers from bank to bank, but they choose to lend or not lend, and that has more of a direct issue on economic growth or not and risk. And so, when they can create an investment on billions and billions of dollars by investing in other banks or other securities that pay 1% more, the return is up and there's no risk. And
Yeah.
so it's
It's
like,
just a money
okay,
tree.
I'll put this in for 10 years at 1%, but I'm guaranteed for 10 years at 5%. So I make 4%. It doesn't sound like but on trillions of dollars, why would I invest in some schmuck trying to start a business, right?
Right.
Not taking the risk. I'm just the elitist keeping it all in house and I'll just control. And then I'll tighten up the money supply because I'm not lending it out. I'm not lending it to businesses to grow. I'm
Yep.
lending it to uh, hedge controllers who are just,
VC. Yeah.
making the
What?
spread, right? So,
Private and equity firms to go buy you.
but yeah, if I've got something sold to you before I buy something, then it's and I can limit the risk of guarantees. Then that's printing money. That's nice. That's a no risk deal or limited risk. So those are hard to find, but those are what you want to shoot for in business is to limit risk. And at the same time, risk taking is what oftentimes allows you to hit home runs. But you want to hit singles and be up to bat to hit a
Get
home
on
run.
base.
And so then the second thing you look for is asymmetric um, investments. And when starting a business, the same thing. You want to look for something that has a big upside and limited downside. So one of the really cool things about what we're talking about, the power washing, is that what's the downside?
To what? Starting a power washing company?
Yeah, what's the downside?
I could use the power washer on my deck, so there's not really a downside. In fact, I have one in my garage right now.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. Absolutely, right? And you can do a lot for the community just by going free cleaning up sidewalks or driveways, right? And probably make $1 doing that if you wanted to do it, right? So very limited downside. It's not like we're buying a chip manufacturing company. We don't know if technology is going to be, as I tell my guys, they got the greatest technology in the world right now. And I told them the other day, I said, before the 1940s, they had far superior technology. So just understand this whole thing is about perception, has nothing to do with your latest greatest technology. And when you do anything around that arena, somebody else has always got something else
Yeah.
coming up. And but power washing in Oregon is a pretty good deal, right? Because everything is musty ugly, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so there's an asymmetric potential there. And what's really cool is there's also an opportunity with some inside information to go get contracts, agreements. And before one trailer or one tank is bought, it can be done. Say, hey, want this business? So, here's the deal. And then you write up the deal, and you almost could, doing it ethically, you could cash flow before you even started the process, right? You could cash flow and go buy the equipment with the contract. So it's not asymmetrically, it's a powerful thing, and there's plenty of efficiency. And
Okay.
if you have an inside line on opportunities, then it just betters your asymmetric opportunity. Because so that's one aspect. The second aspect is, okay, now where do we differentiate? And we talked about differentiating by just having the character to show up when you're supposed to and be trustworthy and clean cut. We'll probably have to shave our beards. No, I'm teasing you, but you know what I mean.
Well, we got to speak English. That's 90% of it.
Well, it's having good systems to deliver every time on time the way you want it delivered that exceeds expectations, right? So, and as we talk about when you get into refrigeration equipment, because it's one thing HVAC, commercial HVAC stuff, but you get into refrigeration, it takes a level of trust, and we have to have a protector from equipment that is potentially gets damaged, right? There's got to be a way to protect that and not take that risk. And either that's a risk we just pass on and we just state, this is a disclaimer, we're not doing it. If something breaks or something doesn't work when you flip the switch back on, that's on you. It's not on us, no matter what, because we don't know. We didn't test the equipment before, and we don't know why it happened. It could be just the higher moisture in the room. It could have been our fault, but we're not taking. That's asymmetrical.
Could have been you knew that shit was broken before we got here, homie.
Yeah, yeah, precisely.
I've been around the block. Yes, yes, yes.
But I say, so let's talk. So when you create a business, you want to look at up to 8, no more than 8. It could be 3 or 4 differentiators. How are we going to differentiate from everybody else? What are the competitive advantages that we have? And I'm going to ask you the question. So I'm not talking all the time, but we get the real expert saying something. How are we going to differentiate?
So I have not been around a lot of power washing companies. I've dealt with a few here lately. Number one, I would say the biggest differentiate that I can see that is just easy is being on time, clean cut, and being able to speak clearly. Sober. These are huge.
You ever? I know you have. You've been
But
to.
I'm going to get specific on one of these, and then you're going to get mad at me. Now, you're
No,
not
no,
going to
no.
get mad at me, but you're going to push back, and that's
So,
okay.
In-N-Out Burgers. You ever notice their personnel?
So I've never been to one. Sorry.
Where could you find an In-N-Out burger?
Texas.
Yeah, they're big in California. That's where they started.
I I
And I
went through
think,
a drive-through here, but
and
like
in
Chick-fil-A differentiates themselves over here.
Chick-fil-A is everywhere the same way too. I mean, they have a consistent employee hiring process where they delight their customers. They're by and large the employees at Chick-fil-A are people you don't mind being around, right?
Yes. So, and it doesn't matter where I go, and because like you, I travel a little bit, and I go to Chick-fil-A because I love their sauce and their tea. but
you
I
you and
can get I
Marielle.
get the same
Marielle's the same
thing,
way. She
but
loves
I
Chick-fil-A.
don't. Yeah, I don't get. I get the same experience, the same feeling, the same
Yeah,
highs, the same goodbyes, the same thank yous.
I would say In-N-Out Burger is on another level, but the same. They're a little bit. They're I would tell you they're.
Higher standard.
Yeah,
Oh wow! I should
yeah,
have went in. I would have noticed that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. You go in there, and it is important to go in because you'll look at their process, you'll look at how they're doing their fries, look at the system they have and how they work together. And they're a step. I would say they're a step above. And I don't. They're not near as big as Chick-fil-A is, I would imagine, but they're a step
But
above.
so they've been able to really control the quality.
Yeah. So then you start asking the questions. What's the hiring process?
Yeah. What's the system?
And you can hire normal people to do extraordinary things if you have a system for success for them. And so that would have to be a differentiator for us, is that we're not going to compromise on who's running that power washer, who's showing up. Can't do it. We're looking for um, back old school career people. That this is, and one of the way I don't know how Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out Burger do it, but they are consistent. It is
Yes.
phenomenal. But I would say one of the cool things that we've talked about, even in the HVAC industry, is to have some type of reward program where there's a sharing of revenue,
Yeah.
not revenue, but of profits.
Ooh, the P word.
Yeah, I could care less about revenue.
Yeah, we don't care.
I,
Fucking owners buying private jets. Yeah, yeah. We want to know
yeah,
how much money you got in the bank.
right. So, so go ahead. Your table here. What's the next one?
So that would be the first one. The second one would be something later, but it's good. It's a big one, and that is to be able to roll out dualies with tanks and hot water that we have. Like, so if we pull up, you don't have to have a water supply, and we can wash your units with hot water. That takes the chemical out of the mix, and now we're just natural. We can get it with hot, but it's hard with cold. But if you steam it, you can knock it out.
Why do we need to wait?
Well, so I was going with we're starting with what's in the garage.
Right, 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 right.
We're not taking a loan out. So that we're taking a loan out at that point. You might not be, Tim, but as a knuckle dragger, you're taking a loan out. Now you're going to the wife saying, I got an idea. Does that make sense? Because now you need a truck, you need a tank, and probably a much bigger pump on your pressure washer. A lot of hose. So I mean, it's an
Now,
investment, right?
now
So, but
the
you
cool
can.
deal is, but if you got water, we'll fill our tank before we leave.
Yeah, yeah. But a lot of problems you get when you get into the cities is water access
No,
to the roof.
so that's a third differentiator, and there's no pushback. I already bought into that the first time I
I
said it.
thought the pushback would be money, the money it costs to set a rig up. I would call a rig the whole truck, the
So
service
you'd want to
truck.
get a kind of a beefy tandem axle trailer, right?
With the toolbox, you want to be able to pull off the hail guards. We want to be able to access things because we're hiring a different human.
Yeah. So do you want a tilt one that'll go down and up, or just
Just a toolbox, and I don't know if we want to put this is not part of this discussion anyways, because now we're talking about, do we stick it on a trailer, pull it with the trailer? That's the easiest, that's the best. Then you have your open bed.
but then you have maneuverability and risk as well. It's a
Absolutely,
whole
absolutely.
whole nother deal.
It's why
especially with
we don't drag trailers to Cool Sis. We just don't allow it. I will ship everything. I'll ship a unit to the crane yard and I'll pay the crane guy to bring the unit to me and then take the old one out before I put it behind one of my service vans
so
because the
what you
risk is
need
unbelievable.
is a long bed dually.
Yes. I just haven't seen a long bed in 20 years. They still make those.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. Yes, a long
yeah,
bed dually
a long bed dually, and
where
you
we can.
want a tank inside it.
Yep, and probably a quad cab so we can have tools in the back and 2 men. And then on the trailer, nope, there is no trailer. So somehow, and yeah, we'll figure that out on a ladder. Stinking old ladders, but we'll figure all that out.
So,
So yeah, that's a huge differentiator, right?
so if
When
we
we show
started,
up, we're not asking our customers for anything. Hi, I'm here to power wash your blah blah. Okay, and then you just go do the job, and you're out of their hair, you're out of the management's hair, customer's hair, you're gone. We don't want to see you. You want to be, and you know what? You want to blend in. You want to walk in as a service technician, as a commercial retail service technician. It's half of my job is just blending in. That way, the customers don't think anything's wrong because people just don't like to know that. They just don't. And any customer I've ever had doesn't want their customers to know that there's nothing going on mechanically. So so when we pull up, you differentiate. One, we're there when we say we're going to be there. We do what we say we're going to do. Be where you say you're going to be at when you say you're going to be there. Just basic life shit. And then uh, we don't need anything from you.
would you get a special fit tank ultimately, but or what would you use to get started?
We'd have to research that.
All right.
I mean, I know some of the rigs I would use, but I would have to look into it. For the heater, the hot water is a big deal, right? Because we don't have to have chemical. It doesn't matter what kind of roof you have. We're just spraying water. You
Yeah.
can
So
do it, and
I'm
I've done it a lot.
with you on that. Um, the issue is this: we're talking about differentiators, hot water. So
Hot water.
let's
So
start with hot
so
water.
so
How are you going to
good
heat the?
employees, hot water, and then the third. Go ahead.
But let's dive into the hot water a
Okay.
little bit. How do you heat the water? What's the best way to do that?
The power washer will have a heater on it.
So is the water? It's not being heated in the tank.
No,
It's
not
heat. It
until we
comes
go to
out
use it.
hot from the
Yeah,
power sprayer.
steaming hot.
Yeah, it's like a steamer. You know what? I'd love
Yeah.
to have.
So the hose is a little bit more expensive, Tim. That's why I'm saying you need a lot of hose, but it's not like a hose where we're just gonna order on Amazon. It's a thicker hose because it's really hot water.
I've seen those hoses
Yeah,
before.
yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, you can get like inch and a half or inch and a quarter hose that are fire department hose
Yep.
quality. I've
I
seen
know it's
those,
red. What we
but
need
I've
is
seen
red.
those used old school stuff, and I wonder for trying it out if we start with some, we got to test it and see if it'll work. But we find we just there's um, there used to be still is. There was a get two hands. Can you see both of my hands? I see both
Yep.
my hands in the bottom picture.
Yep.
There we go. But they had this catalog, and I forgot the name of the company. I'll look it up. But they're for manufacturers that order from them, on
Mm.
large scale stuff. But it's old school. I remember is a big thick catalog. You just look, you could get any size nut, anytime, you can
Great.
get anything.
Granger still has them.
Grangers, but
Great. I
these
would
people
go
were
to. I'd go to
these
my
people were
lady.
they were three steps above Grangers,
Right. I'd
and
go to my
Grangers is
lady
big
at
now.
Grain. I'd go to my lady at Granger, and I'd get all the part numbers to make all this work, and then I would shop it, and we
Yeah,
would get
price
the
it out.
right brand
Yeah,
because
I'll think that.
Granger sucks, Dayton sucks. I mean, their shit sucks. Are they
Yeah,
convenient? Hell yeah. And is it there right now? Yep.
Yep.
And for safety stuff, glasses, screws, fuses, blah blah. But I'm not buying tools there.
So that's what I'm saying. This catalog, and I'll name it. I'll figure it out what it was, and then I'll get back to you on that, and you'll go, oh yeah, that's who
Yeah,
they are, and you'll know
yeah, I
them.
probably know them.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's a big deal, right? Because that signs you every grocery store in America today. If you have an open meat case in a grocery store, you have a DHU, a Four Seasons, Muncher, something like that, Addison up on your roof with a coil that's about fucking this thick. It's 3 foot thick, right? And all that is to dehumidify. It's not cooling. There's still air conditioning working with it, right? But it's going to dehumidify those cases for all the open cases, your vegetables, your meat. If that goes down, you're done. Your store's done.
Is
So
that
that's that. If you have a contract like that, you're on call 24/7.
are
Christmas, it
you
doesn't fucking matter.
are you is that the customer that you would target first?
No, because I thought we were going to start with driveways because we had to work up to buy something. But
No,
if if we were going to build a business to like go do like Dollar General, like bigger commercial stuff, yeah, you get a rig like that, then we're going into Kroger's in Wisconsin. I'm meeting with Alan tomorrow and saying, hey, so I don't even need your spigots, man. We will just pull up and handle your DHUs 3 times a year and your HVAC units every spring. So so that's 3 visits. 2, we're just hitting the DHU and making sure that's effing squared away. And on the 3rd visit, the spring visit, we're hitting all their units in a big showing that time. And that's exactly how I would write that contract. And I would write it for every one of their stores. And I don't know, we'd have to talk numbers off this. We'd have to sit down and talk that, but that's what I'd approach Alan with. But what he would love is I don't have to bother one of his effing employees and take him off the floor to follow me around and show me where the spigot is and help me get the hose. And I'm a fucking klutz and I don't know how to work a ladder because that's who shows up on these power washing jobs. And I've been and I've also worked for companies that had that contract and they're scrambling to get the HVAC guy there. So now they got to pay me just to stand there and babysit this kid and tell him like, you can't spray there, buddy. All right, we got to turn the unit off. It's it's
so
really hard to find that. And when you do find one, they only last for a minute or it ends up being an alcoholic. I'm just telling you.
well, it's
Not
like a
a
painter. It's like a painter, right?
it's your right though. It's a very easy. You can well, I bet Tim hit the wrong. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes. But yeah, I've had some bad experiences with power washing companies in the commercial world. Um, I just think it's a good place that we could set up and live. Um, but I'm not just opposed. I always talk about like we're gonna go power wash HVAC because that's what I know. But this is much broader than that. I don't want to cornerhole anybody. You can do this with anything. Um, and I know what Tim's gonna talk about a little bit later is going out and getting the contracts before you can. You can just go get. You can go get the contracts before you ever start and make sure that it's solid and you're going to be making money. Zero, no risk, minimal risk. He's right. There's always risk. Oh, here he comes. I can see he's starting to
Hey,
poke.
yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I got
Now,
you.
see, now can you see me?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, sometimes that's better. I have a radio phase.
Everybody loves Santa Claus.
I
We'll do a very special Christmas edition this year. I'm going to make
yeah.
Tim dress straight up with a hat and everything.
I've got a brother, an older brother, Mark, who is, I mean, he does do the Santa Claus thing, and he's a stairwell builder, best guy in the world. He
He's
just
what? What is
he,
he?
stairwell builder,
Okay.
old school stairwell builder. I mean, he used to build. Um, Adjust my camera. Can you see me all right?
Yep.
There we go. He used to. I mean, he's done teak wood on yachts. I mean, he's just uh, a simple guy that's as deep as ever, right?
Right.
You just love him. The knuckle dragger. He's the knuckle dragger. In fact, we ought to have him on. You want to bring in another personality? We'll
Absolutely.
talk about Eric. We'll get him on here too. But we should interview
Mark.
Mark. He's
Yes.
of course then he wouldn't let me say anything because
Is he a talker?
no I'm a talker. He's
Yeah.
not. He he's he's just my older brother.
Right.
So it's like, um, no, he would be really cool. I love my brother. He asked me to be his best man in his wedding. That's a whole nother story. Um,
Nice.
so,
We were talking about what?
uh, going and getting the contract. I could hear you the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was just kind of filling some space, but that's what you were kind of talking about. Like we can go and get these contracts. I don't know how all that works. This is from scratch starting a business like this, but we got Tim here who does.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. We'll get that figured out.
I do know the human beings to call, and I
The
know the
nuance
human
is,
beings that say yes or no. You know what I'm saying? I talk to those guys. I know those guys, and they know me. They're gonna
yeah,
be like, "The fucking power washing, Chris? What?"
yeah, and you got an inside green light to say you guys are idiots if somebody doesn't do this, right? A little
Yeah,
different, but similar, right?
yeah, and we could start to get our start, which is probably a leg up in business, right? You take advantage of everything you can. I
Yeah,
would imagine some of these guys would trust me with their HVAC equipment. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And I've
So
worked on it. I know their equipment.
right.
I've been ass deep in that shit. Changing compressors,
So what
going
happens?
and power washing after their power washers leave because they didn't do shit.
Yeah. So you have some main targets, and there's terms for that for your targeted client, and then there's some ancillary businesses that are just there, and you fill that in to keep growth happening. So we may do driveways on down times, but that's a cool thing to have.
Mm-hmm.
And then, man, it just think about if you had a heated power washer. Now you create ice, I know, but you could clean a driveway out pretty quick in the winter on a
Oh no, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I will.
yeah.
I can tell you that it's it would it would spread fast. Then
You
there'd be
could,
like Chicago's calling, Minneapolis, like, hey, you know, because that's like we're gonna like we go talk to them, then we're talking to the district director. So everything from the Gulf of America to Canada, Appalachians to the Rockies, right? That middle of the ground in there.
yeah.
And Kroger, they're fucking big, I think.
I have a
Because they own all the pick and say. They're not called Kroger here, but it's
no.
Kroger.
I was just going to tell you, I have a a discount number for Kroger.
Mm,
That same number works for UFC in Portland. There are
mhm.
grocery chain. Fred Meyer's in Oregon.
Yeah, Kroger's owns Fred Meyer's. I know that because we were laughing. Me and him were laughing about that at lunch one day because he was like, "You've heard of Fred Meyer's?" I'm like, "I used to walk there after school."
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's where I
Oh
got
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah,
candy
yeah,
bar.
yeah,
Got
yeah,
my baseball cards there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they sell televisions. They sell it all, right? It's
It's like a
unbelievable.
Target, big.
Yeah.
We had a big one in Hazeldale, Washington.
So, I think we don't roll out with 12 trucks. Uh, um, I'll provide the dually. Let's get the tank figured out and the equipment figured out. Our
We could play
downside,
with it. We could play with it with
yeah,
yours.
and our
Make it
downside,
better.
um, we go belly up, we sell the tank and a power sprayer. This is asymmetric, right? So But
If you have a heated tank and a dually and somebody that can speak clear words and like function, but like uses toilets, you're gonna make money. I mean, you're
you know
gonna
what?
never not be washing coils. Jesus, just
I'll
chasing
come
cottonwoods all year.
I'll come be the first technician. You train me, and I'll be the first technician, and we'll figure out systems on hiring, and I'll work myself out of a job pretty quick because I want to, but I'll start it, and I'm thinking of we could put, what do they call them, timbrins or something like that. I can build up the suspension,
Yeah,
and
it's
I'm just gonna
heavy, Tim. It's
I'm gonna
heavy.
yeah, I'm gonna donate my truck. I'll order standard wheels, because we'll need that, and because we don't need fancy wheels, and I'll put we'll get some heavy duty suspension. Either I can throw another leaf in it, the leaves on each side, or we can put timbrins in it. I don't think airbags are the way to go.
I think it would ruin them, and eventually there's gonna be some knuckleheads in there. Got to keep it simple.
Yeah, well, the knuckleheads are at the top of our heap, right? We bow to the knuckleheads, right? So
It's my people, man.
yeah, that's right. So and
I
then
spent the last 2 years hiring like 200 of them. I got I got a
now
system
now
down.
if we build in a cool system where we share profits,
Hmm.
so they have an incentive to retain and to do a job right. And one of the keys for hiring for me that's been successful is figuring out what they want to do in life. You know, people, particularly men, but people, we all need purpose. Remember, we had this discussion, and we help people find their purpose. They'll be the right quality of people. We're not looking to retain the person forever. We're looking to help them get to where they want to be as it aligns with their purpose, and that spreads just like you're talking about spreading to Chicago, Detroit, Minneapolis, wherever we go, right? You know how it is when you hire people. If they're looking for another dollar an hour, um, I don't want to compete there. I want to compete with life, right? And making life, multiplying people's, ability to pursue things that are important.
Yep. Getting rid of those wants.
There's we talked about this too. Psalm, was it 23? How's your Old Testament? Psalm 23,
Horrible.
the, the Lord is my shepherd. We use a different term, the Almighty is my shepherd, I shall not want. That's a pretty cool concept. That's a principle that kind of transcends. I'm not a wanter, and so I don't know if you can see my hands here. That's powerful. I don't have any wants, and I'm not a needer. I shall not need. Right. So then you realize, okay, I'm just going after carrying out my purpose, and everything gets provided as I pursue that. If my purpose is to watch TV on the couch, then that's what I'll do, right? And but it won't be so good. So, um, anyway, that's kind of cool. Let's we need to find um, the right type of heated power sprayer and tank.
I'll dig into that tomorrow. I'll have some options by lunch.
I have a long bed dually, and I'll get her set up. We'll send it to Wisconsin.
Yeah, let's see what kind of tank. Yeah, we'll do some math tomorrow.
Yeah,
What we
how
need to
much
do.
does water weigh, and
Yep.
with the
because
loader.
yeah. I know what it looks like in my head. Now we just got to make it mathematically and mechanically work on the road.
And it's a 3500 a diesel, so it's decent. But I
It's
would
perfect.
imagine that if we even went
Someday though, you'd want a 450.
a 450 or a 550, right?
Yeah.
And
But that's not. That's perfect. A 350.
yeah,
We're three
Thir-
steps ahead already.
yeah, it's a 35. It's a Ram, so it's 3500, but same thing as a 350, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a full ton
yeah.
Dodge Cummins.
hmm I'm doing. I've been
I drive a Dodge too.
looking at
Diesel.
getting a dual oil filter system, just to beef it up.
We
And
talked about that.
yeah, so that's
All
cool.
right. So that's number 2. So now we have employees that give a fuck because they're invested.
And
Because
and
we
you
have
talk
a
about
because we put a nice hiring system in place and we give incentives for employees to want to be here. Number 2 is we show up with the tools to do the job. Our own tools. We just show up with our own tools. We shake your hand and say we're here. We shake your hand, sign this ticket, and that's all you got to see us. We're not taking up your time. We're not sucking up your customers' wind. We're in and out, and we're silent ninjas in the back. Don't even see us.
and I think we start out so that we we prove ourselves, but I think that um, we even accept Bitcoin. But with Kroger and the likes, part of the games of, as at the big corporation is to milk time and money.
Oh yeah, they're gonna want you to put you on a 180-day PO system. Blah blah
yeah,
blah.
and we'll do that, but at a cost them.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll do that,
it's a
but at a
much.
cost them. They're gonna have to put so much down, and then it's an interest rate that begins the first day on your 180 or something. I'll throw out ideas that no, that'll never fly. But no, we'll make them fly because it's either it's 15 grand or whatever the price point is, but it's 9 grand cash today if you pay cash, right? So
And
it'll cost.
I'm gonna research some contracts tomorrow.
Yeah, good. That'd be great, and I can tweak them and
I just want to see where people are at.
cost wise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because
So
I
there.
know what service you're providing. What are you charging for that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
right now, these places are paying you to do that, and they do. Even our customers, Starbucks, anybody, any of my customers, they pay a power washing company to come. Then they pay us on top to go do it again
Yeah.
every single year
Yeah.
without fail. I don't know why they still do that.
Now, can we grab your business? I mean, can we grab contracting with your business to do the backup?
Yeah, yeah, but we're gonna be small potatoes. You'll see, Tim. Once
Oh,
once you see.
I no, but I'm thinking of down the road other opportunities where you look at what a sales opportunity that
Oh
is
yeah.
when now we send in our company to contract with yours to do a follow up from the previous power washer company that did a crap job. Now we're first in line to take over permanently, and then you see how that works. And we can.
Hmm.
There's plenty of business out there. So if we had an inside market track by saying, yeah, we'll clean this up for what the first guys did, and then that's just an opportunity to prove yourself, and then your company will never have to do that one again, but you guys have plenty of those that you have to do anyway. We just start picking them off, right? So everybody
So
wins.
you remember I told you Ignite, right? That's a company
Mm-hmm.
underneath
Yeah,
our umbrella that they
yeah,
bought,
yeah,
recycling company.
right.
That was a technician that started that.
Yeah,
He started following. He would like he started a business, and then his buddies would come and pick up the air conditioners
yeah,
and
yeah,
recycle them. They
yeah,
were theirs, right? But they get them out of Cools's hair.
right.
right? And then they'd be like, "We're having a big ductwork job. We have to rip all this out." His company would come, show up, they throw it all out the door, and his company clean it all up, make it
Yep.
look nice out there.
Yeah.
He set himself apart because it was always better looking when they left than when they got there, and
Right.
they were good, and you know what that built up, and then Cool Sis bought it. He's not a technician anymore. Now he sits on the board of Ignite, but
Yeah.
he built that. So he just started that little deal.
Yeah.
And it got, I don't know. I think he said, he's like, Chris, the magic number's like between 4 and 6 million. And then they're going to just want to buy you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they let you get to 20, then you'll keep it. And I said, and he goes, because I was talking, he's like, that, yeah. I mean, that's what Jay told me in his office.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he worked for Jay as a technician that whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Well, we need to.
And then Cool Sis added the built off of that.
Right.
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 So it's much
So
bigger now than what it was when they bought it.
what I like about this is that there's no conflict of interest because you guys are not.
We don't do power washing.
You don't do the
I
and
mean,
you
we do power washing for time
because
and material,
yeah, but
but
you
it's a
do it
service
because
call
you do it because you have to.
because they can't find anybody.
Right.
Yeah. They,
And
we charge a
so
lot an hour for that.
yeah,
They don't
and
want a technician up there doing that.
right, and they don't really want to be. Your company doesn't want to do it anyway.
It
They would
fucking
prefer.
sucks our bandwidth.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. That's what I mean. It's a natural, no conflict of interest, and there's a niche opportunity, and it's a great marketing tool because we're solving a problem for your company, and we solve a problem for the client, and then it's a business, and it develops, and maybe Cool System will buy it down the road.
Or who knows? That's what's cool though. It can go a lot of.
Yeah,
I know in my life, what I've learned in 48 years is if I got my wishes, I would have sold myself really fucking short. And that's the truth. With everything I've ever started out, I've had this idea of what I wanted to be, and it's always better. And I'm like,
yeah,
wow, I would have really sold myself short if I would have got my way. Thank
yeah.
God.
Well, like I said, what happens is that you stick your nose to the grindstone, right? You keep at it, and then you don't even know what opportunities provide
You
itself.
meet new people and build relationships, and things flourish and happen and go
Right,
different crazy ways. And pretty soon you're like, holy moly, God was in that. You know that.
right, right. Well, I think you could. Um, we we pay for the truck, the tank, and 10 more trucks in probably a year's time. If
180 days.
yeah, you just can keep it. But we need to make our mistakes up front, right? Like, oh man, we need this is not the type of truck to use, or this is not the type of power sprayer, or
Yeah,
what.
I'm gonna do some knucklehead kind of research, and you'll do some like big time research, and then we'll meet in the middle, and we'll figure this out.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because maybe turning your truck into a power washing truck is a horrible idea, and we don't know it yet.
Yeah,
We just,
could
could be.
be, but uh, nothing lost.
I think
Uh,
it's a great idea, though.
yeah,
I
that's
do
why we
think
want
we'll
to.
have to fuck with the suspension, though. It's a lot of
Yeah,
weight.
yeah. I don't. I'm not concerned about. I mean, it's 4-wheel drive, and I'm not. I'm not concerned about what's the downside. There's no very
Will
limited
you lose a
downside.
truck?
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to buy 10 trucks and then it doesn't work. Right? That's the downside.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
So that's kind of where I had started that with like, you don't want to spend money right out front. And uh, that's, yeah, that makes sense. But turn your own shit into like, you know,
So,
but
but
if we can get these contracts signed, right? Or
right?
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Before the
you talk to
truck's
Steve. You
done.
you see, hey, can I do this? And for your contact tomorrow, you start. You know, let's um, let's talk about the ideas, and then we figure out what the margins are if there's money in it, and we think that there is, but I have no idea, right? I don't know, but
I
you
I know
got
the contracts are up in October. This is the third year, so all of them, HVAC, all the trade contracts are due in October,
yeah. Now's the
and they're
time
3-year contracts. I know it's up this year
for power washing.
for all of it, for electrician, plumbing, HVAC, power washing. I don't know how about their other vendors. I know those contractors because because the contracts work together. So I've seen them.
And that's for specific to Kroger or for everybody?
No, Kroger's up
Kroger.
this year. Yeah, because
Yeah,
all the union companies are bidding on the HVAC, and we're knocking around should we bid right now?
because you're
Is it
non-union.
worth it to bid? Yeah,
Yeah,
like how for Cool Sis getting something in Wisconsin, they're not super interested in that, but they'd be interested in Wisconsin. They'd be interested in Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Detroit, or Michigan, like a
if
regional deal.
if they got a company that was in all those areas.
So that's what Cool Sis likes. That's their target customer,
Yeah,
right? And Kroger's is national. Even though
right,
that it's divvied up in little
right,
umbrellas,
right.
one guy's writing that check or one company's writing that check. And
But
that's what Cool Sis likes.
you have a if we targeted like that, because that's a gravy one. That's awesome, right?
What?
If you start with that, we'd have to um, get with it quick to grow into those regions, right? Because then you're going to need some power, manpower, and equipment.
So I say, yeah, I would in my mind think we want to start with Kroger in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's
So
a
then,
lot. It's a lot of fucking stores, Tim. It's I mean,
yeah,
that's probably
absolutely.
gonna be close to a $10 million contract.
And you
It's a
could,
lot.
to start out, you could do, you know, one place
A
a
few
day.
stores.
You could do one place a day in Wisconsin for one truck. You still wouldn't cover it all.
Fuck no. And you'd never be home. You'd be on the road in hotels.
Yeah, but you wouldn't need to do that. You start.
This is the issue why you can't find one company that can
They're not
take
big
care
enough.
of it. Yeah.
They're not big enough.
Nobody's
So,
ever scaled it. Or
but
they have, but they suck.
right. So I'm thinking if you took 100-mile radius from where you are,
Mhm.
and I mean, we go after Kroger because what happens with Kroger, you you get started, but then you get 10 trucks going pretty quick, right?
Well, I would approach it as I would like to take your uh
One store or
North
whatever.
Shore stores, which is the stores here on Highway 60, Hartford, Slinger, Cedarburg, Grafton,
Yeah.
the little farm towns right out here by my house, which is 10 stores, probably 20, probably because you get up into Fond du Lac, we could get into that 20, 30 stores. That's a lot of stores to start with. It's a lot of money for a little company.
Yeah. So, but we get. Um, so my point is that, and see, this is fun, right? I mean, this is like
It's pretty detailed.
wheelhouse, and so my thought is, um, your ancillary businesses may start as your primary, but they're going to become ancillary. So, if
What's
let me put
ancillary mean?
not your primary, it's their
Okay.
side
Side.
deals.
Yep.
It's like driveways and businesses downtown, sidewalks, right? But in this case, it would be your mom and pa smaller refrigeration stores, right? It could be, I don't know, 7-Eleven is pretty big as far as national, but I would think that they have enough cooling systems
I
inside.
got a in Quick Trip here in Wisconsin, which is
What's that?
our Quick Trip.
Yeah.
That's our 7-Eleven here. I know him pretty well. And cool sis, our industrial division, our sister side,
Yeah.
does all
Yeah.
the quick trips here. So and
So
we fill in. I yeah, we fill in.
so my my
There's just
thought.
not a lot of downtime with Kroger, right? Because you have to hit them every spring, summer, and fall. And in the winter, you stop, right? And you move
Right.
indoors and you start
Right.
because you're gonna have to start washing all their shit inside. And that's gonna be 2 weeks per store, right? Because you're washing their decks, their shipping, where they ship, they're receiving, they're
Right.
dropping shit all year. You're hitting that once a year on a real
Right.
good. They're leaving you alone. It's all clear and you're getting after it. Putting on a Tyvek suit and just cleaning it, right?
And probably
So
probably vacuum cleaners and
I'm just
squeegee.
saying that a grocery store, a chain of grocery stores is like fucking Pamela Anderson on your when you're a virgin, right? That you're not supposed to get that on your first contract. People
No, but
work to get those contracts because
yeah.
because
So
once you're in there, that's 3 years. You're
let me
good.
finish my
Yeah,
thought though, because that's the primary, and it would be awesome if you got it. But in the meantime,
yeah,
what would be really cool is the Ma and Paul grocery stores, or the Ma and Paul, um, lots of refrigeration that aren't franchise or not national or regional, within
yeah,
100 miles of you,
yeah.
because this is what starts out the truck working on systems that gets us into, okay, now we can see why we could get 20 trucks and go get a Kroger, or go get a, and I'm not saying don't do Kroger. If that hits, great, we'll figure it out. But you have a greater propensity to make mistakes when you start big.
Yeah.
And
It's a lot. That's a lot of mechanical shit going on there.
yeah, but we can overcome that, because one is because of your experience and contacts and how to solve problems and fix it. You can call
Mm-hmm.
somebody in and fix it pretty quick if we get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if it was just me starting, with a group of people that I hired, we wouldn't have a clue, right? We get in trouble, I'm calling Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, uh, and that's not really what you do, but you know somebody that could bail us out. And so that's monumental. That's why you can take on a challenge of a Kroger, right? But what I'm saying is, if you took 100 miles and maybe 60 miles, I don't know,
Sure.
because you want to figure drive time on one truck,
Mm-hmm.
and then who would we hit as far as target market within 60 miles of your place, that would be a potential customer that it's not our bread and butter, our gravy. It's not what we want to do, but there's a niche there, because no one who can do that except a one-upmanship guy.
So I would print some flyers, name it, name the power washing company,
Yeah.
print some flyers, right? And we go hit all the local cafes, all the oil change places to start with, right? Because they're going to want their hoods washed out. Their units up there, usually next to the grease hood, and it's sucking
Right.
all the grease into the coil.
Right.
They need to be cleaned. They
Right.
usually don't have anybody, and usually on pretty old roofs, Tim, because they're usually small businesses. They're not like a fucking McDonald's that change their roof every 10 years.
Right.
They can't have chemicals. You'll just
Right.
burn through that shit.
Right.
So we're that perfect company.
Right.
Did we pull up? We have our own shit, right? Because their pipe's broken and been broken for 10 years. I don't know. We haven't washed it, you know? Only
Right.
guy that ever cleans the grease hood is the guy that comes out because the engines or the motors fucking froze because it's grease it's
Greased
everywhere.
up.
Yeah, because they don't clean it. And they don't know how.
And we could do that and build from one truck to five trucks pretty quick.
Well, yeah, I'm saying I would start with flyers, right?
Right.
I'd go get the oil change place we know he needs his because whether they like you think about it or not, that oil sprays and it sucks in. It just does, and it gets all up into the coil, up in the roof.
What do you, like
Mhm.
a Jiffy Lube or something like that you're talking about?
Oh
Or
yeah, all of them.
yeah.
Yeah, every 5-minute oil change place. Not your Walmarts. Not that. I'm just talking about your mom and
Right.
pop oil places, your shops, your
Right.
auto shops, because they have big exhaust fans in there sucking all that nastiness out, and it's all going into their air conditioner. And they
Right.
need their shit power washed. And we're like I said, we are different. We don't need your water. Oh
Right.
man, our spigot's down there, and our landlord's a fucking asshole.
Right.
The service guy kind of takes a pump sprayer up there. Yeah, we know. We don't need that. We're just gonna pull up with her, and it's hot water. We're gonna really wash it. It's gonna be clean when we leave.
Yeah.
We're gonna take pictures before. We're gonna take pictures after. They'll be on your ticket when you receive it, sir. And when they see the after and it looks like it's new, they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's what it's supposed to look like." Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's
Take
how
pictures,
you set yourself
videos.
at that word of mouth in a place like Wisconsin is
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of power washing companies that are doing that.
Right.
And I will personally at first teach all of our knuckle draggers right in my garage I'll bring an RTU and set it in my fucking driveway. And I'll teach them how to take the hail guards off, how to turn it off correctly, how to turn it back on, sequence of operation.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I'll keep me on the phone for a while.
Right.
I'll make a PM tech out of them. I'm good
Right.
at that. I do have a system for that.
Right. Well, and yeah, you've done similar types of things, and you do similar types of things every day as far as hiring technicians.
Yeah. If we
And,
can hit the first couple out of the park as far as employees, they'll set the tone of our culture and
you're right.
foster the next two. And then we'll have 4 that are rock stars. And then 4 is 8, and then we're good. Once you get 4 or 5 rock stars that have that foster our culture, I call it
Right.
the vein culture, the man culture. Like we go home and we're who we are. When we come to work though, we're fucking men. And
Right.
we're gonna be men, and we treat our customers like ladies,
Right.
and we're not.
Right.
We don't put our fucking hoods up, and we don't bullshit.
Right. Right.
We look people in the eye,
Right.
and we're transparent with our actions.
Right. And everything.
I think it'll work. I'm good at the service side. I've been in it for a long time.
Yeah. So you got to go to an In and Out.
I want to now because I would have noticed that. That would have been because Chick-fil-A, I still notice it. I've been going there for years. I love it. It makes me smile when they say it's my pleasure. And I say thank you. It's
Yep.
phenomenal.
Yep.
It's a
And
great exchange of words that just enlighten my lunch. And when I go back to the office, I'm just happier.
you got to
Nothing wrong
find
with
the
that.
closest In and Out to you will fly you there because it's a step up from Chick-fil-A, and I like
That's
Chick-fil-A.
crazy.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
a step
funny
up.
that it started in Cali, right?
Yeah.
Was it a Cali thing? And they had those standards, huh? They didn't
You
I thought
know,
they didn't have standards there.
I went to California like in I lived out there for a little while, but I lived out there around 86 or 87, 1987, 86. And
Mhm.
people I saw an In and Out burger on it was like Roscoe Avenue, which is a major street, like 6 8 lanes, but it was a street in Van Nuys, California. And I was driving by, and in the median was an In and Out burger, and you drove in one side and you drove out the other side. So you were going uh, east on the entrance and west on the exit. And which is pretty wild. This was just In and Out burger, and the first thought in my mind was like, "Man, you eat their food and it goes in and out." I don't know if I want to do that. And they had a little. They would do a little Bible verse on the bottom of the French fry box.
Really?
Yeah, and
They started that before Chick-fil-A ever.
oh yeah, I think they were around before Chick-fil-A too.
Oh yeah, they were.
So great company, and even today. So now when you open up a new In-N-Out Burger. Like they opened up one in Allen, Texas, or in um, man, I can't even remember where Stacy Road. What was the name of that town I lived in, or or it was. It was on the border of Allen and Fairview. Really nice area, upscale suburb, right? And now when they open up an In-N-Out Burger, there is a line for days. For days, it just nonstop. They have to bring the police out to control traffic because it backs up into the streets. And they have a
Wow.
big drive-through, but it's so popular. It's unbelievable. And they expanded. They chose to expand into certain states like Arizona and Texas, but they used to be just California only. And
Yeah,
that's why
Arizona, Texas. That's it, right? I haven't
I
seen
don't know.
them
You need to um, internet search In-N-Out
closest. I'm
Burger.
going
Find
to.
the closest one to you. But they have the same uniform. All the guys have short haircuts. Clean cut. It's phenomenal. I don't care if you're 18 or 72. It doesn't make any difference. All right.
I
And
think
they're
the closest one to me, sir. Wait a minute. Nope. Houston, Texas.
well, they have some in Dallas, so that's a little
I'm not
closer.
showing any in Dallas.
In-N-Out Burger, yeah, I used to. They had one right in Fairview, where my
Weird.
hometown area is, Lucas.
Lucas.
So the keys is that we lease everything, right? We'll
Oh,
talk
they're
about that.
everywhere.
We lease the
Yes.
truck, the equipment,
Okay.
all of that. We
Yeah, yeah,
lease,
yeah.
yeah,
This is the different learning experience here.
yeah. So
From
the
who?
from the
Another
owner,
company.
yeah, from the owners of the equipment and the truck and things like that. So,
Yes.
and that way your liability gets limited to the lease, right? I don't own that. I just lease
Yep.
it. Yeah,
I see it.
yeah,
Well, perfect. Well, that was a good set. We got a lot discussed there.
yeah. It got dark out here.
Damn sure did. All
you
right,
know,
brother. Go ahead.
I usually take. I was surprised today driving down that it's usually. I mean, I lit a cigar when I left Portland, and I finished it when I pulled in my driveway. So that's a good cigar drive, you
Hell
know.
yeah.
And so the show usually we went longer today because I finished my cigar a long time ago.
Oh yeah, it's 10:40 here.
Yeah, but
I
it's a
gotta
good show.
go.
Good show.
All right.
Good to see you. So,
Yep.
and,
Everybody, good night. Go
and
ahead.
then let's say good night, and then we'll talk for a second and say
Okay.
our
Yep.
proper
All
goodbyes.
right. We'll
Thanks,
see.
group. Okay.